All right, folks, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune because it's time for another episode of the RecPoker Podcast. This is episode 553. This is the chats edition. We also have a forums edition every week where we just talk strategy. I'm your host, Jim Reid, Bluffsterini in the home game and at RecPokerJim on Twitter. And I have the best freaking job in the world talking poker with my friends here on the podcast every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern, live on YouTube. You can join us for free and win a prize just for showing up. We're going to talk to our guest, Ben Ludlow, in just a moment. But first, I have to thank our sponsors, the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. You can find out more about them at runaces.com. Most of what we're doing here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization, so we really depend on support from our sponsors and our premium members. It's going to be a great time at Running Aces this weekend on January 19th and 20th. We're going to be up there having RecPoker weekend at Running Aces. There's a Ford tournament series, and we're also going to be raising some money for a local food bank. So I hope folks in the area can come and stick around and have some fun with us up there. Like I say, most of what we do here at RecPoker is free. If you want to try our premium access membership, you can get your first month for only $5 by using the code at RecPoker, and I hope you do. Now, they let me host the show on Mondays, but I'm just one person. It takes a whole crew, a village, a gang to make the magic here at RecPoker happen. We call this group of wizards the RECing Crew. And if you want to find out more about me or the rest of the RECing Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew, or you can just listen up because you're going to meet a few of them right here tonight on the show, starting with producing co-host Chris Jones.
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the PokerStars home game, and I'm in charge of our monthly deep dives segment where we explore a poker-themed strategy topic. And I'm also really looking forward. If anyone's coming to the Running Aces, I will be there for, I think, all 4 tournaments, so I'll see you there.
And I am John Somsky, also known as Poker Geek MN everywhere, and I try to help out running our home games. And I also will be at some of the Running Aces tournaments, so I hope to see you there.
I'm Keith Brandt. That's Monkey System, just about everywhere. And I run Monkey's off-table tools every month. And I plan to be up there at Running Aces also. I might have to miss one of the tournaments if the Packers are beating the 49ers.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I'm Sasha Sutton. You can find me at Poker for Girls on Twitter, and I run a bi-weekly study group with RecPoker called Mastering Mindset.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I'm excited to be joined by Benjamin Ludlow, the one and only. Ben, first of all, I don't want to put you in a box. I'll just say you're a guy that loves poker. You and I met each other at a couple RunGood events over the last little while, and you've turned into quite a successful and fun professional player. So let's just start off nice and easy and welcome you here to the RecPoker Podcast. Thanks for saying hi.
Thank you, everyone. Which one of you was that guitar shredding at the beginning? That was impressive.
That was Peter Trulin, and we're very lucky to have his contribution to the show. Yeah, thank you. It gets you going a little, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard
the vibes are immaculate. Thank you for having me, guys.
So, Ben, if folks know you from coming up on the show, we've talked about RunGood stuff here a lot. You're a fun character there. They probably know you as someone who sort of plays live poker tournaments as kind of your bread and butter. Is that a fair hole to put you in, a fair box to put you in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've played live poker tournaments very seriously for a long time, but only over the last, I want to say, let's call it a year, have I really been like, all right, this is exclusively sort of what I'm doing and traveling around or playing in the Vegas scene where I live. So yeah, live tournaments, live MTTs.
That's awesome. It seems like, and I think, live tournament or live poker is more fun than online poker. The social element of it is more fun. Being able to play against the other players at the table, I think, is a sort of like a more pure side of poker. Have you always focused on live play, or did you play online as well and just decide this was an area of strength for you?
It's funny. I think back to being a junior in college, January, February, March of 2011. I was in college and playing a lot of sit and goes on PokerStars. And I thought, oh, I'm going to try and go for this Supernova Elite thing, play all this volume online. It's going to be great. And I had 3 great months, and I was like, I don't need to get a job. This is awesome. And then, as we all know, April 2011 was Black Friday. So that sort of ended my serious pursuit of online poker. I've always played a little bit, during the circuit series or during the summer for some bracelet events on WSOP.com. But yeah, I would say, 90+% of my volume over the last 10 years has been live. I worked for a long time. So, when you're taking your vacation to play poker, you don't want to play online. That's boring. So
I love it. Well, if you're watching live in the YouTube chat, I'd encourage you to type any questions you have for Ben in the YouTube chat there. And we're also going to be playing Stake Study Stack with Ben later. So throw some names of famous poker players into the YouTube chat as well. We're also going to be doing our raffle at the end of the show to support a local food bank. So prepare to type the word food bank into the chat at one point later in the show as well. Basically, if you're here in the YouTube chat, stick around. You're going to find some fun ways to win a prize and engage just for showing up. So Ben, that's a sort of a journey that you've been on within the poker world. Sort of sometimes by choice and sometimes by necessity. What was there a moment, like you say, about a year ago or so, that made you decide, no, I'm just pursuing this. I'm traveling around North America, playing live tournaments. And what sort of made you decide that was the right step for you next?
Yeah, I won't go too deep into my journey here because there's long stories of how we got to here. But I've lived in Vegas. I worked in New York in finance for 5 years and then moved out to Los Angeles for a startup in 2017. And I kind of knew going into that startup that it was kind of a high variance decision. It was one of these things where it was either going to work out or it wasn't going to pretty quickly. So I knew that I wanted to get to the West Coast where there was more poker and pursue some creative things as well. I did stand-up comedy for several years. And, part of moving out to the West Coast was starting to take poker more seriously. But even since I've lived in Vegas for the last 5 years, I've always been kind of doing 4 things at once. I continued to consult and work in the finance world and the venture capital world, working with startups and entrepreneurs, was seriously writing screenplays for a while and trying to get movies made, doing stand-up comedy and traveling around trying to do that. So poker has always been a part of that, but it wasn't like the thing, the one thing until recently. And it was just sort of a moment of, I think I've always been part of the community. I mean, living in Vegas, we have our world of poker players here, and all my friends for a long time have been in the industry. Actually, that summer that Black Friday happened in 2011, I actually worked for Poker News. And so that a lot of my oldest friends in poker are industry guys, and all of whom, or women who are still kind of in the industry. So a lot of the people that I go way back with have been in poker. So I felt like I've been part of the poker community for a very long time, despite not ever considering myself a professional or kind of taking it seriously to the point of being a professional. So I fell in love with the community and kind of, a lot of things around it before I really fell in love with the game. And I think the last 2-3 years, really starting to try and take it more seriously, getting more into the studying tools and kind of what we have available to us to get better at the game. It just kind of came to a moment where I was like, well, there's nothing else I'm really want to do right now, so I might as well just do this. And I think as soon as I made that decision, success started to come. I think like with anything, you start to take it more seriously, and the effort that you put into something, shows up. So yeah, it was at a moment then that I started to really put in volume beyond just playing, 6 or 7 or 10 events at the World Series. It was, all right, what's going on before, what's going on after, what's the next stop? Let's make sure I'm at the Wynn every day when I'm home playing tournaments, etc. So yeah, it was just a moment of finally, this was the only thing on my plate and the only thing I really wanted to do. So why force it, or why question it?
Yeah, why fight it? I love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
One segue I want to take here. We got Brian Winter, the Golden Blazer, in the chat saying LFG Ben. So you got at least one fan here in the group already so far.
That's my main man, Brian. I'm sad I'm not going to be in Tulsa with the whole RunGood crew this weekend, but I have to go to a bachelor party in Florida. Really a huge bummer. So
that's tough life you got there,
bummer,
Ben.
yeah.
Tough life, man. Yeah. But that was actually going to be one of my questions for you. So I've got a couple lined up here. And again, if you're in the YouTube chat and you have some questions for Ben, type them in. How do you choose? So you're a professional MTT player. So it's a business decision how you invest your buy-ins. How do you choose which tournaments to play in? And how do you choose like when to travel and add that expense to your ticket as opposed to just like kind of playing locally?
That is a fantastic question, and I wish I had the right answer or whatever, because I still struggle with that. Literally on my phone, there's a list of every stop for the next 5 months, and I'm a man who changes his mind once a day about his life. So
Sure.
Tomorrow I think I'll probably plan to travel to Vietnam for 3 stops, and go to Florida and every stop in between, and go to 6 RunGood stops. And then the next day I'll be deciding, well, there's no point. I own a house in Las Vegas. Why not just go to the Wynn and Venetian every day? I think the answer for me, luckily, has been mostly, and I think this is also a nice segue into what I love about RunGood is socially a bit for me. I'm a lot of my best friends are the people kind of in that RunGood world or who are other traveling players. So it's the type of thing where if Brian and Rachel are going to be at a stop, that's an easy one for like, oh yeah, well, if it works out for me, I'd love to be there and spend time with them and, be able to kind of be around my friends when I'm not playing. But I think it's for a lot of us guys in Vegas, it is a constant question too, because the tournaments here are good, but also, there's a huge majority of tournament professionals who live here. So you show up to a $600 buy-in at the Venetian, and you might play against someone who just came from the Poker Go studio because that's all that's going on today. So I think it's a little bit of it's tough to answer. At what point does the expense of traveling kind of outweigh the difficulty of tournaments where you are here in Vegas versus, if I'm going to Thunder Valley or if I'm going to Council Bluffs where we just were, kind of the relative difficulty of the tournaments. But for me, luckily, RunGood has sort of allowed me to make that decision based on, social or when I'm an ambassador for a certain stop. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out, man. That's a good question, because right now I'm sort of in trying to improve mode and study mode too. So I think for the next 3 or 4 months, I'm going to be very Vegas centric because I'm trying to keep expenses low and save up for the World Series and then, the rest of the year. But something for me too, I think something like I'll try and always go to a Thunder Valley stop, or I'll try and always go to, a Grayton stop, places where they take really good care of us. I'm friends with the people who run the room, or I know I'm going to have friends at the stop. So, yeah.
Nice. RunGood, they have such a good time. They do such a great job with their series. Tina and Haley really know what they're doing, and they have great staff, and they have a great group of regulars that come along. We definitely encourage folks. I wish they'd do more stuff up in the Northeast. They got to come up where near where I am so I can drive down.
Yeah, well, we went. I think the first time we met was at that Baltimore stop, and that was the first real kind of East Coast. I mean, besides they've been down to Jacksonville in Florida a few times. That was the first real like East Coast stop. And I think, luckily, you see how well the Borgata series is doing. I think we'll have more opportunities to, East Coast poker is coming back. It just took a long time after COVID for tournaments in the East Coast to really return. So I think it's definitely on their radar, and they know it's an interesting a place they want to be. So I would imagine that, I don't know if we'll get as far north as you, but
yeah, that's right. Like, a guy can dream, but
we had RunGood Turning Stone, maybe. Who knows?
Why not? South of the border still, so as we like to think of it. Although I will say the playground is a great place to come play poker. I think that would be a great stop for RunGood.
I went to college in New Hampshire, and one of my poker news buddies lives in Montreal, so I've gotten to go up to. I used to drive up there and play every now and then. Yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah, Montreal's a fun city too. So Ben, that was another question I wanted to ask you actually about. You said taking some time studying, spending some time in the lab. You've progressed a lot as a player over the last 10 years, obviously. What's changed about how you study now versus how you used to study when you were first coming up in the ranks as a player?
What's changed is that now I do study.
yeah.
I think a lot of us, I think the beauty and the curse of poker is that it's so easy to learn, and you can obviously, delusional is the wrong word, but success can come when you're making mistakes. So for a long time, you can get away with playing on intuition, especially depending on the games you're playing and where you're playing, et cetera. And I think, I always feel like I had a good feel for making adjustments at the table and kind of understanding how to play against certain people. But I never had a real baseline or a theoretical baseline. And again, I think a lot of that has to just do with the tools that are available to us too, right? Like I remember the book, maybe I don't know if it's called Let There Be Range, which
sure.
it came out, I mean, must have been 2010 or 9 or something. And that was the first time that really the concept of thinking about poker in terms of ranges and making decisions based on, a group of hands as opposed to I put this guy on aces kind of thing, concept was introduced. And it was like a 20-page book and they were selling it for like $3,000. So you think about that 12 years ago versus now where you have every single flop solved that you could get for, $80 to $100 a month from multiple sources. I mean, it's just, it's a matter of convenience and sort of what's available to us. So I think the major difference is now it's so much easier to study. And I think also we have a lot of people who realize that just giving you the answers isn't enough. I think like you have to learn how to study and what works for you. I mean, I am perhaps the most ADD person on the planet. I legitimately have to set a time. I don't know where my timer is. I just cleaned oh, here it is. I have a timer on my desk and literally I'll set it to like 22 minutes because I know I can focus for 22 minutes. And so I'll put 22 minutes on the timer and I know like, all right, even if I'm like starting to wander off in like my mind or something, I'll look down and be like, okay, 7 minutes left. I can like continue to focus on this video for 7 minutes. So I think you just have to figure out what works for you and really take a step back and think about how you need to study, how it's going to work for you. I mean, Jeff Platt's my best friend in poker and he studies several hours a day, but he just will sit there and watch a training video and remember everything that's in the video. And for me, it needs to be a bit more involved, something that's gamified, something that's, I can go back and look at my notes. I might need to watch the video a few times. So I think it's going to take me a lot more effort than it will for certain people. I don't have the mental talent that some people do to kind of retain information quickly, but
that's I like having the timer out there. Like that's when I was quitting smoking.
Yeah.
I remember that was a good technique for me. It's just like, well, just 5 minutes, you can go 5 minutes without having a cigarette. So, and if you're struggling,
like, well, 4 minutes. All right, let's go 4 minutes.
But anything you can do and repeat, right? I mean, that's
Absolutely.
one of the keys. Good for you. And good for like playing to your strengths too, right? I mean, we all have these little eccentricities that we can kind of try and work through, or we can work around, or it's part of what we are. But I love being able to turn that into a productive strength for you. That's a real sign of success, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I think self-awareness is maybe the most important thing in poker and in life. So, if you're not doing what works for you, it's not going to work out, in my opinion. So I
love it. Keith, you unmuted. Did you have something for Ben?
Yeah. You mentioned Wynn and Venetian. Are those your two favorite stops, or are they the two that you would recommend to somebody who's about to move to Vegas, or is it just because you like the places or know the people? Why are those your favorite?
Yeah, I would think, I think a lot of it is sort of self-selecting in terms of that's where the majority of the tournaments are that kind of run on a regular basis with guarantees, et cetera. But I think they've also proven themselves to be the place that takes care of their players the best. We have to remember that casinos are a business, and I think a lot of times poker is sort of pushed to the side because it doesn't make a ton of money for the casino. And so for a place like Wynn and Venetian that are really, really nice places, really nice properties in Vegas, to take poker and specifically poker tournaments seriously is a privilege for us. So anything we can do to support that and kind of having regular stops like that is kind of what I would like to do. But yeah, I mean, the Wynn number one for sure for me, Ray Pulford, who is the tournament director there, is a really good friend of mine. And he loves playing poker. He loves the game, and he takes such incredibly good care of the players and constantly looks for feedback. So I think also just for me, any operator that cares what the players think and want to make improvements is something that I want to support as well, for sure. But yeah, those two, by far, number 1 and 2 in town.
Do you get parking at those places, or
good question?
That's a valid question these days for a tournament player down on the Strip.
So when I moved to Vegas in 2018, I think Caesars Properties parking was free. MGM wasn't. The Wynn and Venetian were. And then it's kind of gone back and forth with COVID and not. But the Wynn and Venetian, literally in the last, it's funny that you asked this question because it's literally been in the last less than 6 months, they've changed it to that you have to pay for parking at both those places now. But if the first 3 hours at the Wynn are free, and you get validated if you're playing something there. So yes, if you're a player, it's free. But if you forget, I paid for parking a few times at the Wynn during the last December series because I forgot to get validated. And then at Venetian, they'll upgrade you to the status you need to be if you've proven to have played like 10 tournaments in the last year or something. So that's another thing where like they're trying their best to cater to us locals. Yeah.
Sasha, did you have something?
Yeah. Hi, Ben. It's so great to meet you and learn about your life. We have a lot in common. We both came here from New York. We both worked in finance.
All right.
Yeah. And we both love stand-up. So I'd love to chat with you sometime about stand-up in Vegas.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Yeah. I love, okay, let me start out with this. So I'm just a cash player in Vegas, and I love now being able to really quickly identify the tournament players that sit down on a cash table because there's such defined differences. They're often very sticky on very thin value, which I commend. And they play out of the blinds. Let's see, let me get this math right. 100% more than I do, right? And they defend blinds like the earth is about to, disintegrate. It's sweet. And then the other night, something very weird and wonderful happened. I'm very, friendly, but mum pokerish, and a big hand happened for me. It was very complicated, and the whole table wanted to talk about it. And there's a bunch of tournament players there. There were some tourists there, and we had this huge group chat, which I've never done in a poker game. And it felt so sweet and the tournament gal, she was like, yeah, you're sizing, blah, 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 and this and that. And I'm like, here's range. This, it was just like, 8 people like sharing ideas on this one hand. I just wanted to mention it just because it just was like a home game moment in a serious Vegas room. In terms of when you're talking to folks about skill sets in these two contexts, which can be very different. Or for yourself, if you ever play cash, or
I do play.
How do you talk to folks about how they're refining skill sets, moving between tournaments and the cash context?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is obviously like for tournament players, and I always say this to anyone who it's like the question of, well, what's the one thing you'd tell someone who's kind of starting out in tournaments or wants to get better is studying your pre-flop stuff. And I think that it's such a, obviously the decisions you make on 20 blinds versus 40 versus 60 versus 80 versus 100 versus whatever, 7, etc. are so different. And I think cash, there's a little bit less thought to kind of how you're playing pre-flop. It's pretty static ranges for the most part. And it's so much about kind of, again, finding that really thin value in, cash games, making sure that you're getting 3 streets when you have ace king on an ace high board versus ace queen, etc. Where in tournaments, it's, a little bit more about bluffing and kind of finding those other spots. So I think, I always find that playing cash games more gets me a little bit in a different mindset that ends up helping me in tournaments, especially at the beginning, because you're deeper. So, for me, I think just the biggest difference is in terms of, refining those skill sets. Yeah, there are so many things that overlap that are great, but for me, it's just I still every day try and drill on pre-flop stuff for tournaments, and I'm working on my, 25 big blind ranges and making sure that I am understanding my ICM, reshove spots and what I'm doing on the bubble and things. So for me, that's the biggest kind of like mental difference or sort of refined skill set, if you will.
And just to follow up, how does you said it just sometimes cash games will help you mentally in terms of your tournament. How does it help you exactly?
I think for me, it's just you get to play a lot more deep stacked. So it's something where you're playing kind of the same stacks, and it allows you to really just think about how you are extracting value in certain hands versus, well, I know I can put pressure on this stack size, et cetera. It's like, well, I'm not going to be able to put a ton of pressure on people with 200 blinds deep. So it's very much about just how is if in my mind it's sort of like playing PLO, it's like, how is my value up against his value or her value, et cetera, and really thinking about kind of, those minuscule differences in value ranges, as opposed to, well, is it value or is it a bluff here, which is a lot more about tournaments, is just trying to define, is it this or is it that, versus what are kind of like the minuscule differences here in this cash pot. So I just find that I think it's all good skills to have, because in tournaments you can just kind of forget those things that are important sometimes. And I think one helps the other for sure.
I would just say that this notion of there's fewer, there's less bluffing, or it's more, you're rarely doing a value versus bluff decision in cash.
Mhm.
I would not agree with that statement at all.
Okay, fair enough.
Especially for the very, very good 2-5 and 5-10 players. It's
yeah, for sure. I think I just say that as more of like a general concept. 100%. I think like, playing 2-5, 5-10, et cetera. There's tons of bluffing for sure. I just think it's more of, again, when you're bluffing in a tournament, you use the ability you're able to put on someone's, the pressure you can put on someone's stack to your, as sort of how you think about constructing a bluff or what you're able to do in a hand. Whereas, in a cash game, we're all 200 big blinds deep. So a bluff has to be a lot more convincing, if you will. And you can't just say, well, I know I can fold him out here because he's short and he's, doesn't want to, he doesn't want to go to a turn because he knows he's going to have to call a big bet on the turn if I do something here, et cetera. Right. So you're getting to the river a lot more often in cash games, and that just makes your bluff, you're going to have to go through streets. You're going to have to, you can't give up as easily. You can't get away. Yeah. So that's more what I say. Oh yeah. But I've gotten my ass bluffed off plenty of times in cash. Don't.
Chris Jones, you had something?
Yeah, Ben, you had congratulations, first of all. You had a really tremendous score at the WPT. Do they just call it the December? I forget what it's actually called. The championship series?
The World Championship. Yeah.
World Championship or whatever. But it was in a mix of PLO and Hold'em. And I was just kind of curious about, do you play a lot of other mixed games, or was that sort of like, I'll just try this out and I had a great run, or is that something you're consistently playing a lot of?
I used to play like almost exclusively mixed games when I was playing. Well, I don't want to say exclusively because, all the tournaments are still mostly no limit hold'em, but I used to play a lot of mixed games and really love it. And that was the thing that I wanted. There was a while where I thought my goal is to really get into battling in the 10K mixed events at the World Series. Like that's my dream. I want to play the 50K someday. And I think a lot of the industry folks who work in poker love playing mixed games too. So a lot of my friends played mixed games, playing some of the kind of 4-8, 8-16 sort of smaller stakes meetup type mixed games in Vegas really kind of got me into it. And I used to go down to Atlantic City and play some bigger mixed games at Borgata, or go up to Foxwoods every now and then and play some stud games or, mixed games. And so I really do love the limit games and sort of all that. But PLO, I got into sort of randomly as well. It's sort of like, well, I kind of know the rules and played a few tournaments and sort of got the hang of it a bit and started to study more. I don't love playing PLO cash because I just don't have the gamble in me. I don't have what it takes to be, just firing away. But I think PLO tournaments to me are one of my favorite formats of poker for sure. So no, that was not definitely a random decision. I always try and play sort of the mid stakes PLO stuff when I can and when it makes sense.
And then just a quick follow-up to that. I think one of the things that we've been trying to do at RecPoker is try to introduce people to, maybe if they've never played those games, like we have a monthly mixed game that we try to play and people can sort of experiment with. First of all, do you think that those games will grow over time? I think they may. I think they have like a strong potential. And then secondly, maybe more importantly, or more bigger question is, if you were talking to an inexperienced recreational player who maybe has some hold'em experience, but maybe is kind of like mixed game curious, and what kind of advice would you give to them if they wanted to sort of like dip their toe in the mixed game waters?
Well, I hope they continue to grow, and I think series like the World Series circuit and RunGood and whoever else who are running sort of these $400 or lower Omaha 8 or Horse or whatever are such a great introduction. And I think my mindset with poker was always, I was never sort of afraid to jump in the deep end and just sort of, get in a 4-8 mixed game and lose a few hundred to learn what you're doing. And I think a lot of people are just, I always hear people say that, and even really good pros too, who are like, well, I would play some of those, but I don't know the games well enough. And I think, I do appreciate that concept that they want to be really good. They don't want to go into something where they feel like they're uncomfortable in any spot. But I think part of how you learn is you get uncomfortable in those spots and rip the Band-Aid off and figure it out and sort of play through it. So, my advice would be study the rules of stud and go play a low stakes horse tournament. Or, honestly, in Vegas now, there's a pretty good, I think the kind of 20-40 to 40-80 mixed community is really active now, which is great. But there's still always a really good sort of 4-8, 8-16 kind of community of people who, it's not going every day here, but often enough that I think people should just get into it. And I think the other thing about mixed players is they all want more people to play mixed. So you play a mixed game. There's always going to be some curmudgeons in mixed games as well. But I think for the most part, everyone wants people to enjoy it and for those games to grow. So they are going to be patient, more welcoming, trying to help you kind of get up to speed. So I would say my advice would be don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I make mistakes every day playing poker, and just rip the Band-Aid off, go play a horse tournament.
I love it. And, finding a nice, cheap game to make some inexpensive mistakes is a great way to learn, right? I mean, it's one thing to watch the videos and to read the rules, but you really have to put yourself in that spot. So I encourage our listeners to join our free home game club here. If you go to rec.poker/home games, we play dozens of tournaments, different styles, different mixed game every month. And if you're in Las Vegas, head over to Joseph Wills' place, the Poker Oasis that he runs with his wife, Tony. When I was down there in December, I had a great time. We played 25 cent, 50 cent, played a bunch of different games. I played some for the first time. It was a really friendly crowd. It's all about just having like a friendly crowd and low stakes and dipping your toe. Let's find some new games, find some new ways to enjoy poker. I couldn't agree.
Yeah, let me revise my answer. Go to recpoker.com and get involved with them. That's how you learn mixed games.
I love it, Ben. So I want to talk a little bit about where to go to play poker. You enjoy the RunGood series. We talked about that a bit. We've loved working with them for the last several years. Fantastic group. One of the things that they do really well, I think, is they have like good structures, very realistic price points. Their tournament entries, a recreational player can show up and play, and even if they know they're going to fire a couple bullets, it's very accessible, and the people there have a great time. So I find that you get quite a range of players from a skill and experience level in that. When you're playing in tournaments like that, Ben, I've got two questions for you. How do you identify who are the players that are less experienced versus more experienced? And then how might you adjust your play from one group to the other in a similar spot?
Yeah. Well, the tough answer is stereotype. I think for sort of, I think even great players would say physical appearance is sometimes going to be a big giveaway, right? If I show up and I'm wearing headphones and I got a nice leather backpack, you can make some assumptions about me, and then vice versa. If the guy shows up wearing a Steelers jersey at the table and, seems very gregarious and he's drinking beers, I'm like, well, man. But I think
you're at the right table is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
I saw this guy in Baltimore and I was like, all right, so start betting bigger. Okay, cool. No, I think, I always say this because I hate I think you have to come in with sort of some player types in your mind. And I hate the idea of just saying, oh, this person's a recreational player, this person's a fish or a bad player versus a good player. Like that doesn't really help anyone because there are so many different types of bad player. And I hate the word bad player too. I think it's like, there are so many types of people who deviate from what you would consider maybe theoretically optimal, right? Like maybe someone doesn't realize that they're playing way too many hands pre-flop. And so the adjustment there is that you can play a lot more hands against them in position and take advantage of, when they're playing way too many hands. Or maybe they're playing way too few hands, or they're never bluffing, or they're always kind of, there's only value there. So then your adjustment is to fold a lot more and just kind of, give up when you've got a weak ace on an ace high board because you're going to just lose to ace king a lot, kind of thing. But I always tell people there's so many different kinds of bad, and I think just saying, well, this person's a wreck or this person's this or that is the wrong way to think about it. It's much more, take one decision that they made. Maybe it was that they showed down a hand that, somehow they got to the river with nines on a, 3 Broadway board and they never should have gotten there and they should have given up. Well, all right. So take that piece of information, right, and extrapolate from there and say, well, we know they're playing too many hands. Maybe the piece of it is that they're way too attached to hands pre-flop. That when they find a pair, they're never going to give up. Maybe they are unable to fold, a hand like kings, queens, or aces in a spot where you should be able to find a fold. So every time you have 2 pair, you want to start betting bigger because they're never going to give up, or vice versa. So I hate identifying bad versus good, rec versus pro, all this. It's much more take one decision that someone's made and go from there, because physical appearance will get you certain, and again, I know it's mostly joking, but I think like you can make an assumption that you see someone who's young who sits down at the table, maybe they're going to be very aggressive, but I also hate pigeonholing yourself to that too. Take what you can from the start, but wait till you see something to make your adjustment worthwhile. Don't over assume from the start, because gets me into trouble all the time. I have so many times assumed that, no offense, that, an older guy in his 40s or 50s or 60s, like, well, he doesn't know what he's doing, and then make some incredible play. And I'm like, oh shit, well, I forgot that these guys know how to study too. So I've gotten away from trying to over kind of put myself in a box too quickly with reads like that.
Yeah, we talk about on the show. When I started, I played a lot online, and so I got used to categorizing opponents, like you say, by the mistakes that they would make. Oh, you're too tight, you get a red tag. You're too aggressive, you get an orange tag. You're too loose and passive, you get a green tag.
Yep.
And it's a much more helpful way to categorize opponents by the mistakes that they make, just by whether they're good or bad. Because, like you say, there's a lot of different ways of being bad. And
100%.
that doesn't,
what does the fish tag to help me, accomplish?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
They're bad, but it's, notes and being specific. I think it's like, and someone out there listening who's trying to kind of get better at this, challenge yourself to really find a specific thing to go after, and it does. You don't have to figure everything out. You're never going to know everyone's game or how they're going to make every decision. But if you can find one thing that you can kind of take advantage of or extrapolate on, or they're playing way too much out of position and it's going to get them into trouble and they find themselves in terrible spots because they keep flatting out of the small blind when they should be folding, the majority of the time, or 3-betting. Take advantage of that piece, So, yeah.
I love it. Well, we're getting close to the end of the interview portion of the show here, so I'll give folks in the YouTube chat one more chance. We've got some comments in there so far, which is great. Love the support. Ben, so my last question then would be, I've got 2, I suppose. You talk about playing live a lot and knowing how to adjust to the mistakes that you see your opponents take. How do you record information while you're playing live? Do you take notes? Do you just remember it all? And what are the things that you try and remember and really hold on to while you're playing in a tournament with someone that you might not play in another tournament with again for weeks or months or ever?
I am very, very, very good question. And it's funny, the person who I talk the most poker with, Jeff Platt, he, for years and years, I was so bad at remembering hand histories and I'd be like, I think I was the cutoff and it was like 1,600 big blind, or maybe it was 6K, I don't know. And so I've really, in terms of just recording, I try and, as soon as the hand is over, text it to someone. I have, several chats of people that I talk poker with, or I write it down. I think luckily the thing that is my strength is the adjustment piece. That part I don't have to think or take notes as much about. Like that's kind of sticks out to me and sticks in my mind a lot better, where it's like, oh, I saw so-and-so should do this, or I played with this guy before and I remember this about him. The technical piece of the hands and sort of going back and kind of getting into the precision of the theory is the part where I have trouble remembering sometimes. And, suits in a hand are way more important than they used to be because of, the blockers that you pick for certain types of bluffs, or this is the hand that I want to have when I'm calling because, it unblocks all the hands that are good for him to bluff with here or her to bluff with here. So I don't take a ton of information in terms of player specific stuff. And it's much more the hand history itself that I'm, but I will put in sometimes in a hand history, old crazy guy with a Steelers hat on did X, so just for some context, so it's not completely in a vacuum. But yeah, I think it's for me, it's a lot more about the hand itself and the context. Luckily, I remember pretty well.
Right on. Good for you. Well, you got having that sort of in-game memory is really important too. It's just a natural skill for any poker player.
I got something at least.
Yeah, not great choice in football teams, but we can talk about that off the air. Yeah. Well, this has been a fantastic interview. We're gonna play stake study stack with you in a second here, and then we'll close the action with our speed round. Before we do, Ben, is there a way that you'd like fans, if they enjoyed the interview, to reach out and say hi or get more Ben Ludlow in their life? Is it on Twitter, or what's your preferred way to interact with people in the poker world?
Twitter or Instagram are great. Twitter, probably most specifically at Bloodlow, BLOODLOW. Reach out. I'm addicted to my phone, so I have been pretty good this year. I was scrolling way too much and on Instagram and Twitter way too much last year, so I now have a 1.5 hour a day screen time limit, and I've been kind of using it and I'm sticking to it. So if I don't get back to you for 20 minutes, that's why.
Yeah.
But no, definitely always feel free to reach out on Twitter or Instagram. I'm always there.
That's great. And good for you for the time blocking. That's something that I'm trying to do more of as I learn more about myself and how to be my best. It seems like a little discipline and planning can go a long way when it comes to that.
I have to force myself with things like that, or I'm just out of control. So again, self-awareness, right?
Yep. Yeah, it goes a long way. All right, Chris Jones, you are the YouTube chat master. Have you pulled a few names for Stake Study Stack tonight? Okay.
I have. All right. So, Ben, this is a game we call Stake Study Stack. I'm going to give you 3 names. You're going to choose one of these players that you would stake in a tournament or cash game, one that you really would like to study with and learn from.
Okay.
And then one that you would just take an enormous amount of pleasure of just stacking them and taking all their chips.
Respect. Love it. Let's do it.
All right. And we're gonna
no mercy.
No mercy. We're gonna pick some names that we've mentioned in these interviews here so far, as well as a couple that came up in the chat. So I've got Brian Winter, Jeff Platt, and Clayton Fletcher.
Ooh, wow. I will go stake Jeff Platt, study Brian Winter, stack Clayton.
I like it.
Zero hesitation too.
Yeah, it was just like he just had it. He just had it. It was
sorry, but not sorry, Clayton.
Yeah.
No, I will shout out Clayton. He gave me my biggest opportunity ever in comedy, so I love that guy. But
oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, he's been on the
stack
show.
His ass.
Fantastic. Yeah. No, take those chips. Go get that cheddar. All right, so Ben, we're going to close out the show with the segment that we like to call closing the action. So this is a speed round. I'm looking for fast answers. You can say pass if you don't have something close to your.
Speed is the key here.
Speed is the key. Yeah, okay, quick and short, and we're going to fire through here. All right, we'll start with an easy one. Ben Ludlow, what's your favorite poker hand?
Aces.
Is poker a gamble or a skill game?
Skill.
What's your biggest poker pet peeve?
Tanking pre-flop.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Oh yeah.
Is Ace King a drawing hand?
No.
Are you pro chop or no chop?
I'm pro chop.
What player type are you?
Ooh. Knit.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
God, I could go on for hours about this. Yes.
It is.
Actually, it might be a taco, but I think a taco is a sandwich too.
Okay. I love. Anyway. We get some good answers about.
I've talked so much about this. We'll have to have another podcast about it. Sorry, continue.
Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Busy.
What's one thing you're afraid of?
Oof. Snakes.
Yellow light coming up. Slow down or speed up?
Speed up.
Register early or late reg?
Early.
All right. That's the end of the speed round. We have one more
Okay.
question for you, Ben. One more question. This can do with poker or not.
Mhm.
Looking back on a life lived, someone comes up to you today with a gun to your head and says, you have to go back and do one thing differently. You have to go change one thing in your life. What do you do differently?
Oh boy. Is this part of the speed round or do I have a second?
No, now you can take a moment.
Okay.
Now you can take a moment and set yourself.
Oof. One thing I would change about my life. I will go. Okay. When I was in college, funny enough, once upon a time, I was a national team rower, lightweight rower for the United States, and went to Dartmouth and rowed lightweight at Dartmouth. And I broke my ribs a bunch of times and kind of got fed up with it. And I left my sophomore season and was just sort of over it and didn't make very good efforts to come back and try and row again. And I would have loved to try and rode with all my friends junior and senior year and, win some stuff. So
great answer. I appreciate that. And no, we do the speed round just to loosen you up and clear your mind. And then we come in with the hook.
It's hard to pick one because I changed about 100 things, but
No,
that's the first one that popped
one.
into my mind. That's a good one.
That's what we're going for. And you got tallying it up here, 784 points, which is a really excellent score for the speed round.
What's the high score?
I think it was like 2,400 or something.
Wow.
No, they really just flew through. There were just a couple pregnant pauses here that cost you, I think, Ben.
Yeah,
otherwise,
it was the fear one because I didn't want to say dying alone, but that was.
Well, this has been a treat. I knew this was going to be a fun time, Ben. You're a real pleasure to play with at the tables, and I can tell you're just one of these good guys that's enjoying his life in poker. So, thanks for saying yes to come on the show and being so accommodating and being a great guest. We appreciate your time here.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it. And anytime you want to have me back, I'll be back. So thanks again.
All right. Well, looking for, hey, you know what? We're going to take you up on that one of these days. We'll have you come back on the forums edition and we'll talk some strategy questions.
Yeah, I'd love to talk some strategy anytime.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Look for me, buddy. Thanks again. Great chatting.
Thank you guys. Be good.
All right. Well, if you want to find out more about Ben, we'll make sure that Twitter handle is in the show notes. Bloodlow, BLOODLUW. And we're going to start giving away some prizes here on the show. If folks want to start typing the words food bank in. One quick announcement. I want to say happy birthday to Martha Reid. It's her birthday tonight. My sainted mother. Hope she's enjoying herself, and happy birthday to her. John Somsky, why don't you take us through some home game results, and then we will see who's going to win our food bank raffle prize tonight.
Well, actually, I need to interrupt myself before we start on these home game results. We, at the end of every year, I come up with a post that is our home games by the numbers. So now that 2023 is over, here's the information for those games in 2023. So for the most wins, David Westerveld and Ron Payton both earned 19 wins in 2023, with Stuart Carriage pulling up in third place with 14 wins.
Wow. And just to interrupt you for a moment here, both K-Poker Wannabe and Evil Roy Slade are in the YouTube chat right now. Congratulations to both of them. 19 wins is a lot. That's more than 1.5 a month. Congratulations, guys. That's a really, really impressive. Way to go.
And your question may be, how did they get so many wins? And it's partially due to this next category, which is the most number of tournaments played. Now, nobody played all 479 home games that we offered in 2023. But Evil Roy CA, David Westerveld, any guesses on how many he played?
I mean,
479.
Out of 479, I'm guessing the answer starts with a 4. That would be my guess.
465.
Wow, Dave Westerveld, what a freaking trooper! Man.
means he only missed 14 tournaments the entire year.
Oh, that is so impressive. That is fantastic. That's
And
our
of course
lifetime achievement winner, Dave Westerveld.
Yep. We also have Izanma, who actually won this category last year, played 435 tournaments.
Oh,
and then
amazing.
in third place was K-Poker wannabe Ron Payton, who got 384
there you go.
events played.
Super impressive. I mean, that's amazing. Hundreds and hundreds of these.
It's more than one a
free
day.
money poker tournaments. Yeah, he's in there on Saturdays and some of
All
those
three of them
Wednesdays.
are more than one a day.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a great point. I can't get over that. So that's Dave Westerveld, Ron Payton, and Spike Izanma. That is technically more than that information is private right now. I always have a soft spot in my heart for Izanma because they're the person that John Somsky first started tripping over their username back in the day.
That's the best. That's the best name that we've ever had because it took him so long to get it right.
I'm so glad that Spike is still playing to his continued level of excellence here in the free play money home games at RecPoker.
Well, and now I can just say Izanma like that. Izanma.
It's like nothing.
Izanma.
It's like rolls right off the tongue. Oh, congratulations, everybody. Super impressive.
Next, we have the most pins. Now, theoretically, there were 9 pins that were possible to win in 2023. But for several of those, only one of them was given away. So nobody won 9 pins. However, Fergie56, Kim Kilroy, did win 4 pins.
Wow.
She won a mixed bronze, a daily bronze, a mixed TOC silver, and the Silver Lifetime Achievement Award.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah.
Then we have, and we had 7 people won 3 pins, 21 people won 2, and then 90 people won a single pin. Those were all of the pins won last year.
And those are some people won 0.
Oh, yes. Everyone else won 0.
Those are not easy to win, folks. And if you have one of these beautiful pins here, if you find me at a RecPoker event, I carry them around with me, and I've got the spreadsheet on my phone, so I can for free hand over any pins that you have earned. I will be at Running Aces this weekend. If anyone's there, come claim your pins for free from me. Otherwise, you can go and order them through the website. We just charge shipping and handling, so I can get my little butt off to the post office and bundle them up and send them off to you personally. So if you have earned a pin and you'd like it, email me is probably the easiest way, Jim@rec.poker, and I'll give you some instructions on how to claim that pin.
So next we have merch?
I'm bringing for this one. I'm bringing the pins, and we'll have some patches there, and there might be a couple. Shirts, compliments of Jack and Jill, who created some RecPoker branded merchandise for us to share with some members. So hopefully, fingers crossed. If you get me early, you might catch some of those some of the new garments from Jack and Jill. Burke, way to go, team.
Next, we have the most caches. K-Poker wannabe Ron Payton had 84 caches, which meant he cashed in 22% of the tournaments that he played in.
Excellent.
Evil Roy CA, David Westerveld, got 69 caches for 15%. And Izanma also got he got 64 caches for also 15% rather.
All right, a couple of killers out there.
And last but not least, the best ROI for players who have played at least 100 tournaments. So if you didn't play 100 tournaments, you weren't in the running for this. We have Bone Crusher 14, Marcel Dusick, got 61%.
Sweet.
Keto Man 335, Kian Tavakoli got 54%, and K-Poker wannabe Ron Payton got 52%. So you can see there were several names repeated throughout all of these things. Congratulations to all of them.
Yeah, way to go, everybody. And a couple OGs of RecPoker there on the ROI front as well. No surprise there. Super impressive. And John, speaking of super impressive, way to go running another year with 470-something free home games in our home game club that people get to come and participate in. We're so lucky to have you running this whole organization that everyone benefits from so much. The heads up challenges every quarter, the monthly mixed games, all the no limit hold'em stuff, all the tournaments of champions, the go for the gold, It's just so impressive, and we're all so grateful and appreciative. My hat's off to you, sir. Thank you again. Fantastic work that you do.
Well, I try to do my best, and even though I make lots of mistakes, I try to keep it running. Next, we have E. Anderson 85. Eric Anderson won the Mixed Game Championship Series on January 10th. That was no limit 5-card draw. This is his first mixed game victory for the year. And of course, this also puts him in the lead for the Player of the Year points race.
That's right. Exciting.
Remember, for these championship series, only your best top 10 scores, so only 10 of the 12 games, if you play all 12, will count. Or if you miss a couple, then everyone has to throw away their 10th or 11th and 12th win anyway, so it won't put you at too much of a deficit.
Yeah, I was even too sick to play the first week. So even if you miss a month like me, you can even miss 2 months and you'll still get a chance to count your best 10 scores in our Player of the Year race that runs all the way to December.
Exactly. Then we have our daily series TOC that was played on January 8th. Evil Roy CA David Westerveld got his first TOC victory for the year. That is his 66th lifetime victory. Then for our daily series, Stewie 13, Stuart Carriage got his first nightly victory. Noah 1291, Noah Anderson got his first nightly victory for the year. Now you said it, Joe got his first international victory for the year. East Coast Bitter, Ben Enslow got his first international victory for the year.
Wasting no time. Ben's got a goal for this year to win 21 Rec Poker home games this year. I mean, that is that's setting the bar pretty high. How many was Jacob Kiki's goal? Was it 2 years ago? 20? And Dave has won 21, I think, in a year. And I think someone else won 19, you were saying, this past year. So 21, I mean, that's, I'm worried Ben's going to be feeling a little stressed out in December. So Ben, I would say get those 21 victories out of the way early, because you're going to be in the blender come the end of the year. But man, I am rooting for you. That would be fantastic if you can pull that off.
21 is rarefied air, so that's going to be tough to do. I remember after Jacob made his victory for 20, the next year I said I was at least half as good, so I was going to win 10, and I did manage to scrape by winning those 10. But man, 21, well, I don't think so.
Ben knows what he's doing, if anyone can do it. And he knows how to game select. He's in there in those small field international tournaments on Saturdays. And if people want to watch along on Ben's fantastic journey this year, you can go check him out on twitch.tv/bjammin. He's got a lot of great stuff going on over there. So congratulations on your goal, Ben, early, because I know you're going to knock it out of the park. And this is just the first start. Here we go. Congratulations.
That sounds like that should be a series on either Netflix or Hulu. Ben's fantastic journey. Anyway, Shamu * 27140, Roger Lamp.
Roger
won his first LPP event of the year, so he can contact info at rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
Fantastic. He's going to really enjoy that. I know, like a lot of our other great learning partners, Learn Pro Poker is a fantastic place to go take your game to the next level. And we're happy to give away a free month every Sunday when someone wins our Learn Pro Poker home game club. Again, the games are free to play, but the prizes are real. Is there anything else that we should be queuing up over the next little while? It's almost time for Marek Madness, so that's something to start getting excited about. So far, I only see one person typing the word food bank into the YouTube chat. We've got a few other people in the stream right now, so this is your last chance to enter the draw and see if you can win a prize. Is there anything else that we should be talking about, folks? What's coming up? I'm just super excited about heading out to Running Aces again this weekend. We're going to be supporting a local food bank out there too. So if you're listening to this live on YouTube, or if you're listening to this the day that it comes out, Friday morning, it's not too late to swing by Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, just an hour north of the Twin Cities in Columbus, Minnesota, and bring either a monetary donation or a non-perishable food item to donate towards the second harvest. Actually, I'll just make sure that we are It's the second harvest. Oh, damn it. I don't remember exactly the name of the food bank.
Yeah, no, that's
Second-
the name. That's a local. They do good work.
Yeah, Second Harvest something in Minnesota. We've been communicating over email about setting that up. So that'll be a nice way to support a local food bank and have some fun with us at Rec Poker Weekend. All right. Well, I see we've got two people to roll the die between, Chris. We can it's either going to be Kay Boker Wannabe or Jennifer Galloway, who's going to win a fantastic prize tonight. Chris, what sided die would you like to roll for our binary choice here? I can't believe we don't have more people that want to win a free prize just by typing the words food bank into the YouTube chat. I'll give them one more second to do it because I'll say
I got to log in too. So keep stalling.
We recently we've got enough YouTube followers now that we can take super chats, which is a way of donating to our cause right through the YouTube chat. So if you're I don't know, do you have to be a YouTube premium member or something like that? If you are and you'd like to donate, we'll be sharing a portion of all of our YouTube donations with a local food bank, and it's our pleasure to support a cause like that, because food insecurity is something that affects people all over the world. Maybe someone in your own backyard or in your own neighborhood that you might not expect, and donating to your local food bank is a great way to make the world a better place. All right, Chris, I think we are all set up here. You're going to do is that a 8-sider?
I'm doing a 10-sider.
A 10-sider.
Because I never get to roll the 10-sider.
Okay,
we always have more or less, like 6 or something. One time I rolled the 20-sider, but I've never rolled the 10-sider. So
do we want to do odd and even? Ron's a little odd.
And, yep.
Oh, that sounds
that's
good.
A great
odd
idea.
And even. All right, Ron's definitely odd. Let's see who the winner's going to be.
0 is even.
Zero is even.
Just for
all right
clarification.
Yep. No, always good to be clear.
Away we go. It's a 5, of course.
It's a 5. That's odd. That's Ron. Ron, congratulations. Ron has a good track record in these. Ron, send that email, please, to info@rec.poker. You've won a prize. If you are not already a Rec Poker Premium member, then congratulations, you've won a free month at Rec Poker. And if you are already a Rec Poker Premium member, then you've won a series of other fantastic prizes. Membership to Learn Pro Poker, Solve for Why, PokerCoaching.com, the Poker Forge, Tournament Poker Edge. We've also got discounts on coaching material and coaching experiences through the Rec Poker Shop. So check that out. I'll look forward to getting that email, Ron. To everyone else, I guess I just want to say thank you to the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. We couldn't do what we do without their support. Thanks to Ben Ludlow for being a fantastic guest. Keith Brandt, Sasha Sutton, Chris Jones, John Somsky for being on the RECing Crew and being great supporters of everything we do here at Rec Poker. And you, the listeners, and in the YouTube chat, thanks for coming out and having a great time. We'll see you next week on the Rec Poker Podcast. Night, everybody.